Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarane Trinadapi Sunichena Torad Iva Sahishnuna Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Vakivalam, Kalau Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatiranyata. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jai Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adigor Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Gopala Govinda Rama Shri Madhusudana. Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Gopala Govinda Rama Shri Madhusudana. Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Gopala Govinda Rama Sri Madhusudana. Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hey. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hey. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rakshama. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Pakima. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pakima. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pakima. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahi Mam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're still in Mathura, but now we begin a major section. Here in first couple of episodes, and we will hear more about it through various chapters. We begin our sessions concerning Jarasandha. Jarasandha plays a pivotal role in Krishna's killing all the demons. So for the next few episodes and then some afterwards, we will hear about Jarasandha. This first episode is entitled Jarasandha Attacks Mathura 17 Times. Upon Kamsa's death, his 2 wives became widows. According to Vedic civilization, a woman is never independent. She has 3 stages of life. In childhood, a woman should live under the protection of her father. A youthful woman should live under the protection of her young husband. And in the event of the death of her husband, she should live under the protection of her grown-up sons. But if she has no grown-up sons, then she must go back to her father and live as a widow under the father's protection. And so it appears that Kamsa had no grown-up sons. Therefore, after his wives became widows, they returned to the shelter of their father. Kamsa had 2 queens, namely Asti and Prapti, and both happened to be the daughters of King Jarasandha, the lord of the Bihar province. In those days, it was known as Magadha. After reaching home, the 2 queens explained their awkward position following the death of their husband Kamsa. The king of Magadha, Jarasandha, was indeed mortified upon hearing of the pitiable condition of his daughters. When informed of the death of Kamsa, Jarasandha When informed of the death of Kamsa, Jarasandha decided on the spot that he would rid the world of all the members of the Yadu dynasty. Jarasandha decided that since Krishna had killed Kamsa, then the whole dynasty of the Yadus should be killed. Jarasandha then began to make extensive arrangements to attack the kingdom of Mathura with his innumerable military phalanxes, which consisted of many thousands of chariots, horses, elephants, and infantry soldiers. Jarasandha prepared 13 such military phalanxes to retaliate the death of Kamsa. Taking with him all of his military strength, Jarasandha attacked the capital of the Yadu kings, Mathura, surrounding it from all directions. Lord Sri Krishna, who appeared like an ordinary human being, saw the immense strength of Jarasandha, which appeared like an ocean about to cover a beach at any moment. Krishna also perceived that the inhabitants of Mathura were now overwhelmed with fear. Krishna began to think within himself about his mission as an incarnation and how to tackle the present situation present before him. Krishna thought that since he was not going to conquer the kingdom of Magadha, to kill the king of Magadha, namely Jarasandha, that would be useless. Krishna's mission was to diminish the overburdening population of the world. Therefore, Krishna took the opportunity to face so many men, chariots, elephants, and horses. The military strength of Jarasandha, which appeared before Krishna, and so Krishna decided to kill the entire force of Jarasandha so that Jarasandha would go back and again reorganize his military strength. While Lord Krishna was thinking in that way, 2 beautiful chariots, fully equipped with drivers' weapons, flags, and other paraphernalia, arrived for Krishna from outer space. Krishna saw the 2 chariots present before him, and then immediately addressed his elder brother, Balaram, who is also known as Sankarsana. My dear elder brother, O best among the Aryans, you are the Lord of the universe, and specifically, you are the protector of the Yadu dynasty. The members of the Yadu dynasty sensed great danger in front of the soldiers of Jarasandha, and they are very much aggrieved. So, just to give them protection, your chariot is also here, filled with weapons. Oh, my dear brother, I request you, sit down on your chariot and then kill all these soldiers, the entire military strength of the enemy of Jarasandha. The 2 of us have descended on this earth just to annihilate such unnecessary bellicose and belligerent forces, and at the same time, we must give protection to the pious devotees. So we have the opportunity now to fulfill our mission. So please, let us execute it. Krishna and Balaram, descendants of Darshaha, decided to annihilate the 13 military companies of Jarasandha. After equipping themselves with military dress, Krishna and Balaram mounted their chariots. Krishna rode the chariot on which Daruka was the driver. With a small army, they came out of the city of Mathura, blowing their respective conch shells. Curiously enough, although the other party was equipped with greater military strength, when they heard the vibration of Krishna's conch shell, their hearts were indeed shaken. When Jarasandha saw Balaram and Krishna, he was a little bit compassionate because Krishna and Balaram happened to be related to Jarasandha as grandsons. Jarasandha specifically addressed Krishna as Purushadhama, meaning the lowest among men. But actually, Krishna is known throughout all the Vedic scriptures as Purushottama, the highest among men. Jarasandha had no intention of addressing Krishna as Purushottama, the highest among men. But great scholars have determined the true meaning of the word Purushadhama, or one who makes all other personalities go downward. Because actually, no one can be equal to or greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Jarasandha then said, "Yes, it will be a great dishonor for me to fight with boys like Krishna and Balaram." Because Krishna had killed Kamsa, Jarasandha specifically addressed Krishna as the killer of his own relatives. However, Kamsa himself had killed so many of his own nephews, and yet Jarasandha did not take notice of that. Only because Krishna had killed his maternal uncle Kamsa that Jarasandha even dared to criticize Krishna. Yes, that is the way of demoniac dealings. For demons do not try to find their own faults or find the faults of their friends. They only try to find the faults of their enemies. Thus, Jarasandha criticized Krishna also for not even being a Kshatriya. Because Krishna was raised by Maharaj Nanda, Krishna was not technically a Kshatriya, but a Vaishya. Vaishyas are generally called Guptas. And another meaning of the word Gupta means hidden. So Krishna was both hidden and raised by Nanda Maharaj. Thus, Jarasandha accused Krishna of three faults. Number one, that Krishna killed his own maternal uncle, Kamsa. That Krishna was hidden in his childhood. And number three, that Krishna was not even a Kshatriya. Therefore, Jarasandha felt ashamed to fight with Krishna. Next, Jarasandha turned towards Balaram, addressing him. "But you, Balaram, if you like, you can fight along with Krishna. And if you have the patience, then you can wait to be killed by my arrows, and thus you can be promoted to heaven." It is stated in Bhagavad Gita, "Hato va prapsyasi svargam, jitva va bhokshyase mahim, tasmad utishta kaunteya, yudhaya krita nishchayaha." This verse says that a Kshatriya can benefit in either of two ways while fighting. If the Kshatriya gains victory in the fight, he enjoys the results of victory. But even if killed, the Kshatriya is promoted to the heavenly kingdom. After hearing Jarasandha talking in this way, Krishna answered, "My dear King Jarasandha, you should know heroes do not talk much. Rather, they show their prowess. And because you are talking a great deal, it appears that you are assured of death in this battle. We do not care any longer to hear you, for it is useless to hear the words of a person who is going to die or one who is very distressed. To fight with Krishna, Jarasandha surrounded Krishna from all sides with great military strength. Exactly as the sun appears covered by cloudy air and dust, Krishna, the supreme sun, was covered by the military strength of Jarasandha. Krishna's and Balaram's chariots were marked with pictures of Garuda and palm trees. The women of Mathura all stood on the tops of their houses, palaces, and gates just to see the wonderful fight. But when Krishna's chariot was surrounded by Jarasandha's military force and was no longer visible to them, they were so frightened that some of them fainted. Krishna saw himself overwhelmed by the military strength of Jarasandha. Krishna's small army of soldiers was being harassed, so Krishna himself immediately took up his bow, which is named Sharanga. Krishna took his arrows from its quiver and one after another set them on the bowstring, shooting them towards the enemy. And they were so accurate that the elephants, horses, and infantry soldiers of Jarasandha were quickly killed. The incessant arrows shot by Krishna appeared like a whirlwind of blazing fire, killing all the military strength of Jarasandha. As Krishna released his arrows, all the elephants gradually began to fall, their heads severed by the arrows. Similarly, all the horses fell, their necks severed, and the chariots fell also, along with their flags and the fighters and drivers on the chariots. Almost all the infantry soldiers fell on the field of battle, their heads, hands, and legs cut off. In this way, many thousands of elephants, horses, and men were killed, and their blood flowed just like the waves of a river. In that river, the severed arms of the men appeared like snakes, and their heads just like tortoises. The dead bodies of the elephants appeared like small islands, and the dead horses appeared like sharks. And by the arrangement of the supreme will, there was a great river of flood filled with paraphernalia. The hands and legs of the infantry soldiers floated just like different kinds of fish. The hair of the soldiers floated like seaweed and moss, and the floating arrows of the soldiers resembled waves of the river. And all the jewelry from the bodies of the soldiers and commanders seemed like many pebbles flowing down the river of blood. Lord Balaram, who is also known as Sankarsana, began fighting with his club in such an heroic way that the river of blood created by Krishna overflooded. Cowards became very much afraid upon seeing the ghastly and horrible scene, while the heroes began to talk delightedly among themselves about the heroism of the two transcendental brothers, Krishna and Balaram. Although Jarasandha was equipped with a vast ocean of military strength, the fighting of Lord Krishna and Balaram converted the whole situation into a ghastly scene far beyond ordinary fighting. Persons of ordinary merit cannot estimate how it could be possible. But when such activities are accepted as pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whose will everything is possible, then this can be understood. For the Supreme Personality of Godhead creates, maintains, and dissolves the entire cosmic manifestation merely by His will. So for Krishna to create such a vast scene of devastation while fighting with an enemy is not so wonderful. And yet, because Krishna and Balaram were fighting with Jarasandha, just like ordinary human beings, still the affair appeared wonderful. When all the soldiers of Jarasandha had been killed, and Jarasandha was the only one left standing alive, certainly Jarasandha became very depressed. Sri Balaram immediately arrested Jarasandha, just as with great strength one lion captures another. But while Lord Balaram was binding Jarasandha with the ropes of Varuna, and ordinary ropes also, with a greater plan in mind for the future, Krishna asked Lord Balaram not to arrest Jarasandha. Therefore, Krishna released Jarasandha. As a great fighting hero, Jarasandha was ashamed, and so he decided that he would no longer live as a king, but would resign from his position in the royal order and go to the forest to practice meditation under severe austerities and penances. As Jarasandha was returning home with other royal friends, however, they advised Jarasandha not to retire, but to They advised Jarasandha not to retire, but to regain strength in order to fight again with Krishna in the near future. The princely friends of Jarasandha instructed him that ordinarily it would not have been possible for him to be defeated by the strength of the Yadu kings. The defeat Jarasandha had just now experienced was simply due to his ill luck. The princely order thus encouraged King Jarasandha. His fighting, they said, was certainly most heroic, and therefore Jarasandha should not take his defeat very seriously, since it was only due to his past misdeeds. After all, there was no fault in his fighting. In this way, Jarasandha, the king of Magadha province, having lost all his strength and having been insulted by his arrest and subsequent release, could do nothing but return to his kingdom. Thus, Lord Krishna conquered the soldiers of Jarasandha. Although Krishna's army was tiny in comparison to Jarasandha's, not a pinch of Krishna's strength was lost, whereas all of Jarasandha's men were killed. The denizens of heaven were very much pleased, and they offered respects by chanting in glorification of Lord Krishna, showering Krishna with flowers, accepting the victory with great appreciation. Jarasandha returned to his kingdom of Magadha, and thus Mathura city was saved from the danger of imminent attack. The citizens of Mathura organized the combined services of professional singers like Sutas and Magadhas, along with poets who could compose nice songs, and thus they began to chant the victory glorification of Lord Krishna. When Lord Krishna entered the city of Mathura after his victory, many bugles, conch shells, and kettle drums sounded, and the vibrations of various musical instruments like bairis, turiyas, veenas, flutes, and mridangas all joined together to make a beautiful reception. While Krishna was entering, the whole city was cleansed. All the different streets and roads were sprinkled with water, and the inhabitants, becoming joyous, decorated their respective houses and shops with flags and festoons. The Brahmanas chanted Vedic mantras at numerous places. The people constructed road crossings and gates at entrances to lanes and streets. When Lord Krishna entered the nicely decorated city of Mathura in such a festive attitude, the ladies and girls of Mathura prepared different kinds of flower garlands to make the ceremony most auspicious. In accordance with Vedic custom, they took yogurt mixed with fresh green grass and strewed it here and there to make the victory jubilation even more auspicious. As Krishna passed through the street, all the ladies and women regarded Krishna with eyes bright with great affection. Krishna and Balaram carried various kinds of ornaments, jewels, and other booty carefully collected from the battlefield and presented all of it to King Ugrasena. Krishna thus offered respect to his grandfather because Ugrasena was at that time the crowned king of the Yadu dynasty. However, in due course of time, Jarasandha, the king of Magadha, besieged the city of Mathura not just once, but 17 times in the same way, equipped with the same number of military phalanxes. But each and every time, Jarasandha was defeated, and all his soldiers were killed by Krishna. And each time, Jarasandha had to return home disappointed. Each time, the princely order of the Yadu dynasty arrested Jarasandha in the very same way and again released Jarasandha in an insulting manner. And each time, Jarasandha shamelessly returned home. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This episode is called Kala Yavana. And while Jarasandha was attempting his 18th attack, a Yavana king somewhere to the south of Mathura became attracted by the opulence of the Yadu dynasty and also attacked the city. It is said that the king of the Yavanas, known as Kala Yavana, was induced to attack by Narada, and this story is narrated in the Vishnu Purana. It seems once long ago, Gargamuni, the priest of the Yadu dynasty, was taunted by his brother-in-law. When the kings of the Yadu dynasty heard this taunting, they laughed at Gargamuni, and Gargamuni thus became angry at the Yadu kings. Gargamuni decided that he would produce someone who would be very fearful to the Yadu dynasty. And so Gargamuni pleased Lord Shiva, receiving from him the benediction of a son. Gargamuni begot the son, Kala Yavana, in the wife of a Yavana king. So, this Kalayavana inquired from Narada, "Tell me, O sage, who are the most powerful kings in the world at this time?" And Narada informed him that indeed the Yadu dynasty was the most powerful. Being thus informed, Kalayavana attacked the city of Mathura at the same time that Jarasandha tried to attack it for the 18th time. Kalayavana was very eager to declare war on a king of the world who would be a suitable combatant for him, but up to now he had not found any. However, being informed about Mathura by the sage Narada, Kalayavana thought it wise to attack Mathura with 30 million Yavana soldiers. When Mathura was thus besieged, Lord Sri Krishna began to consider, in consultation with Baladev, how much the Yadu dynasty was in distress, being threatened by the attacks of two formidable enemies, Jarasandha and Kalayavana. Time was growing short. Kalayavana was already besieging Mathura from all sides, and it was expected that the day after next, Jarasandha would also come, equipped with the same number of divisions of soldiers as in his previous 17 attempts. Krishna, however, was certain that Jarasandha would take advantage of the opportunity to capture Mathura when it was also being besieged by Kalayavana. Krishna therefore thought it wise to take precautionary measures for defending against the attack upon Mathura, which would be done from two strategic points. Because if both Krishna and Balaram were engaged in fighting with Kalayavana at one place, Jarasandha might come at another point to attack the whole Yadu family and thus take his revenge. Jarasandha was very powerful, and having been defeated 17 times, Jarasandha might vengefully kill the members of the Yadu dynasty or arrest them and take them to his kingdom. Krishna therefore decided to construct a formidable fort where no two-legged animal, either man or demon, could enter. Krishna decided to keep his relatives there so that Krishna would then be free to fight with the enemy. And we'll do one more section. This one is entitled Dwaraka. It appears that formerly Dwaraka was a part of the kingdom of Mathura. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated that Krishna constructed the fort in the midst of the sea. Remnants of that fort Krishna constructed still exist in the bay of Dwaraka. Krishna first of all constructed a very strong wall covering 96 square miles, and the wall itself was within the water. It was certainly wonderful and was planned and constructed by the great architect Vishvakarma. No ordinary architect could construct such a fort within the sea, but an architect like Vishvakarma, who is considered to be the engineer among the demigods, is able to execute such wonderful craftsmanship anywhere in the universe. After all, if huge planets can float in weightlessness in outer space by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then surely the architectural construction of a fort covering 96 square miles within the water was not very wonderful. It is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that this new, well-constructed city, developed within the ocean, had regular planned roads, streets, and lanes. There were also well-planned parks and gardens filled with plants known as kalpa vrikshas, or desire trees. These desire trees are not like ordinary trees of this material world. The desire trees are found only in the spiritual world. By Krishna's supreme will, everything is possible. So, such desire trees were planted in Dwaraka, the city constructed by Krishna. The city was also filled with many palaces and gopuras, or big gates. These gopuras are still found in some of the larger temples. They are very high and constructed with fine artistic skill. Such palaces and gates held golden water pots or kalashas. These water pots on the gates or on the palaces are considered auspicious signs. Almost all the palaces were skyscrapers. In each and every house, there were underground rooms containing big gold and silver pots for stocking grains. And there were many golden water pots within the rooms. The bedrooms were all bedecked with jewels, and the floors were mosaic pavements of Marakata jewels. The Vishnu deity, worshipped by the descendants of Yadu, was installed in each house in the city. The residential quarters were so arranged that the different castes, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras, all had their respective quarters. It appears from this statement that the caste system mentioned in Bhagavad Gita existed even at that time, 5,000 years ago. In the center of the city was a residence made specifically for King Ugrasena, and this was the most dazzling of all the palaces. When the demigod Indra saw that Krishna was constructing a particular house of his own choice, Indra sent the celebrated Parijata tree of the heavenly planets to be planted in this new home. And Indra also sent a parliamentary house known as Sudharma. The specific quality of this assembly house was that anyone participating in a meeting within it would not become overwhelmed by the influence of invalidity due to old age. The demigod Varuna presented a horse which was all white except for having black ears, and this horse could run at the speed of the mind. Kubera, the treasurer of the demigods, presented the art of attaining the 8 perfectional stages of material opulence. In this way, all the demigods began to present their respective gifts according to their different capacities. There are 33 million administrative demigods, each entrusted with a particular department of universal management. All the demigods took the opportunity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead constructing a city of his own choice to present their respective gifts, making the city of Dwaraka unique within the universe. This proves that while there are undoubtedly innumerable demigods, none of them is independent of Krishna. As stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ekale Ishwar Krishna are Saba Britya. Jare Jaiche Nachai Satayeche Kare Nritya. Krishna is the Supreme Master, and all others are Krishna's servants. So all the servants took the opportunity to render service to Krishna when Krishna was personally present within this universe 5,000 years ago. And this example should be followed by all, especially those who are Krishna conscious, for they should serve Krishna by their respective abilities. Very interesting to understand, however, in the middle of the night, as the citizens of Mathura were sleeping, Lord Janardana, Krishna, suddenly removed them from Mathura and placed them in Dwaraka. And when everyone awoke, they were amazed to find themselves, their children, and their wives sitting inside palaces made of gold. With the new city now fully constructed according to plan, Krishna transferred all the inhabitants of Mathura and then installed Sri Balaram as the city father of Dwaraka. After this, Krishna consulted with Balaram, and being garlanded with flower garlands and carrying no weapons, Krishna came out of the city to meet Kalayavana, who had already surrounded Mathura. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namaste Narasimhaya, Namaste Narasimhaya, Prahlad Ahlad Dayane, Hiranya Kashipu Vakshaha, Shilatangana Kalaye, Ito Nrsinga Parato Nrsinho, Yato Yami Tato Nrsinha, Bahir Nrsinga Hridaye Nrsinho, Nrsingham Adin Sharanang Prapadye, Nrsingham Adin Sharanang Prapadye, Nrsingham Adin Sharanang Prapadye. Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Sringam, Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam, Keshavadrita Narahadi Rupa, Jai Jagadisha Hare, Jai Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa, Jai Jagadisha Hare, Jai Jagadisha Hare, Jai Jagadisha Hare, Jai Jagadisha, Jai Jagadish, Jai Jagadisha Hare, Hare, Jai Jagadisha Hare. Om Tat Sat.